Once upon a time, a new family, a new beginning. In the heart of Mawa village, where the golden sun kissed the land and the rivers hummed gentle songs, lived an elderly couple named Namdi and Ifeoma. Their small, mud brick house stood near a lush farm, where tall palm trees swayed in the breeze and the scent of fresh yams and maize filled the air. Namdi and Ifeoma had everything: a peaceful home, a thriving farm, and the respect of their people. But one thing was missing: a child to fill their home with laughter. Each evening, they sat outside their home, watching the sky change colors as the sun set behind the hills. "If only we had a little one to love," Ifeoma often whispered. "Someone to teach, to care for, to pass on our stories." Namdi would nod, his eyes deep with thought. "Perhaps the spirits will bless us in another way," he would say. A special meeting. One morning, after many nights of prayers, Namdi and Ifeoma made a big decision. They would visit the orphans' home, where children without parents lived, and see if their hearts would find a child to love. The home stood at the edge of the village, surrounded by acacia trees and the sound of children's laughter. As Namdi and Ifeoma entered, a little girl with bright eyes and a warm smile ran past them, chasing a butterfly. She stopped when she noticed them and greeted them with a respectful bow, just as elders were honored in their village. "Good day, Mama." "Good day, Papa," she said, her voice light as the wind. Ifeoma's heart warmed instantly. "What is your name, my child?" she asked, kneeling to look into the girl's deep brown eyes. "Ziora," the girl answered with a hopeful smile. "It means show the world." At that moment, something shifted in Namdi's heart. He looked at Ifeoma, who was already smiling. This was the child they had been waiting for. A new home, a new life. That same day, Ziora packed her few belongings: a small carved wooden bird, a tattered book of folktales, and a handmade bracelet from her best friend. Holding Ifeoma's hand, she left the orphanage with a heart full of hope and stepped into her new home. The house smelled of roasted groundnuts and warm stew. "This is your home now, Ziora," Namdi said proudly. Ziora's eyes widened. She had never had a home like this before. The walls were lined with clay pots, colorful woven mats covered the floor, and the air was filled with warmth, not just from the cooking fire, but from the love in the room. Becoming a daughter. Life in her new home was wonderful. Ifeoma taught Ziora how to pound yam, cook spicy jollof rice, and roast plantains over an open fire. Namdi took her to the farm every morning, showing her how to plant cassava, pick ripe oranges, and care for the chickens. "A good farmer listens to the land," he would say. "The land speaks to those who care for it." Ziora loved the farm. She loved the feel of warm soil in her hands, the sight of green crops swaying in the wind, and the laughter she shared with her new parents. Each night, after a long day of work, the three of them sat under the big baobab tree, telling stories and watching the stars. "Mama, Papa," Ziora whispered one night, her voice shy. "I love you." Ifeoma and Namdi held her close, their hearts full. "And we love you, Ziora. Forever." A joyful announcement. One morning, as the rooster crowed and the village stirred to life, Ifeoma called Ziora to the kitchen. "Ziora, my child," she said, her eyes twinkling. "I have news." Ziora wiped her flour-covered hands on her wrapper and turned eagerly to her mother. "What is it, Mama?" Ifeoma smiled and placed a gentle hand on her belly. "You are going to be a big sister." Ziora's heart leaped with joy. "A sister? Or a brother?" she asked, eyes wide. Namdi chuckled from the doorway. "Maybe both." Ziora clapped her hands, jumping up and down. She had always dreamed of having a younger sibling to love and protect. That evening, as she lay on her mat, she whispered to the stars, "Thank you for my family." She had finally found where she belonged. Tragedy strikes. The seasons passed, and happiness grew in Nnamdi and Ifeoma's home. One bright morning, the cries of two newborns filled the air, bringing double joy to the family. Twin babies, Obi and Ada, were born, a strong baby boy and a gentle baby girl. Ziora's heart swelled with love as she held her new siblings for the first time. "I will protect you both forever," she whispered, stroking their soft cheeks. Life became busier but more joyful. Ifeoma taught Ziora how to rock the babies to sleep, and Nnamdi showed her how to make little rattles from dried gourds. Each morning, Ziora would wake up early to help Ifeoma with chores and then rush to the farm with Nnamdi. And in the evenings, she would play with Obi and Ada, singing them lullabies until their tiny eyes closed. The house was filled with love, laughter, and warmth, a perfect world. The night everything changed. Then, one fateful evening, darkness fell upon their home, not just the setting sun, but a tragedy that would change everything. Nnamdi and Ifeoma had gone to the village market, leaving Ziora at home with the twins. The sky was painted with orange and purple, and a cool breeze carried the scent of roasted maize. Ziora sat on the mat with Obi and Ada, telling them a story. Boom! A loud crash echoed in the distance, followed by shouts and screams. The ground trembled slightly under her feet. Ziora's heart pounded. She grabbed Obi and Ada, holding them close as fear gripped her chest. Moments later, the village elder came running to their house, his face pale with sorrow. "Ziora, my child, there has been an accident." She froze, her breath caught in her throat. The elder knelt beside her, his voice heavy. The cart carrying Nnamdi and Ifeoma lost control on the rocky road. They did not survive. The world stopped. Ziora's vision blurred. No, this cannot be real. Her hands trembled as she looked down at Obi and Ada, who were too young to understand what had just happened. Tears streamed down her face, but she held them tightly, whispering, "I will take care of you. I promise." Orphaned again. The next days were silent. The house, once filled with laughter, now felt cold and empty. People came to mourn, bringing food and words of comfort. But no words could fill the hole in Ziora's heart. At night, she cried in secret, staring at the stars, whispering, "Mama, Papa, please come back." But the stars gave no answers. Still, Ziora had no time to grieve fully. She had two babies to care for. She woke up before dawn to fetch water, cook porridge, and wash their tiny clothes. She sang to them when they cried, rocking them gently until they slept. But no matter how hard she tried, she was just a child herself. She needed help. The relatives arrived. News of Nnamdi and Ifeoma's passing spread beyond the village, reaching distant relatives who had not been part of their lives for years. One by one, they arrived. Some came with kind hearts, offering support and comfort. Aunt Ezin, Ifeoma's younger sister, was one of them. She was a gentle woman with soft eyes and a kind smile. She held Ziora's hands and whispered, "You are strong, my dear. You will not be alone." But not everyone had good intentions. Among the visitors was Uncle Okoro, Nnamdi's cousin, a man with rich clothes, sharp eyes, and a greedy heart. He smiled at the villagers, pretending to be concerned, but in his mind, he saw an opportunity. The seeds of doubt. One evening, as the family sat around the fire, Okoro cleared his throat. "We must discuss the future," he announced, his voice smooth but cold. Ziora, holding Obi and Ada, looked up, confused. "Ziora is just a girl," Okoro continued. "She cannot run a farm or raise two babies alone. It would be irresponsible." Murmurs spread among the relatives. Aunt Ezin frowned. But this was Nnamdi and Ifeoma's home. They wanted Ziora to care for the children. Okoro laughed, a slow, knowing laugh. Oh, but was she truly their child? The air grew heavy. Whispers began. That is true, she was adopted. She is not truly blood. Should she be the one to inherit everything? Ziora felt a chill run down her spine. But I love them, she said, her voice small but firm. I love Obi and Ada. I will take care of them. Okoro's smile widened. Love is not enough, child. The farm must be run by family. Real family. The whispers grew louder. For the first time, Ziora felt afraid, not just for herself, but for her siblings. She looked at Obi and Ada, who were smiling and giggling, unaware of the storm brewing around them. She tightened her grip on them. No matter what happens, she thought, I will protect you. But deep inside, she knew a battle had begun, the betrayal and banishment. The days after Nnamdi and Ifeoma's passing were filled with uncertainty. Ziora did everything she could to care for Obi and Ada, waking up early to fetch water, cooking their food, and rocking them to sleep when they cried. But no matter how much she tried, whispers about her place in the family grew louder. The gathering of relatives. One afternoon, the elders and relatives gathered under the great baobab tree in the village square. The sun burned bright overhead, but a heavy cloud of tension filled the air. Ziora sat on a small wooden stool, holding Obi and Ada close. They had no idea what was happening, only that their sister's arms felt safe. Uncle Okoro stood in the center, dressed in fine robes, a sly smile playing on his lips. He raised his hands, commanding silence. We are gathered here to discuss an important matter, he began, his voice smooth and powerful. Nnamdi and Ifeoma are gone, and the future of their farm and children must be decided. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Ziora sat up straight, her heart pounding. The farm belongs to Obi and Ada, Okoro continued, his eyes scanning the faces around him. But there is a problem. He turned sharply to Ziora, his expression darkening. Ziora is not a real daughter of this family. She was adopted. A stranger. An outsider. Gasps filled the air. Ziora froze, her breath catching in her throat. That is not true. Aunt Ezin stepped forward, her eyes blazing. She is their daughter in every way that matters. Okoro chuckled, shaking his head. Blood is blood, Ezin. And Ziora has none of it. The whispers grew louder. She is not one of us. She has no claim to the farm. She should leave. Ziora felt her hands tremble. She looked at Obi and Ada, their innocent eyes staring up at her. The accusation. Okoro's voice boomed over the crowd. She is trying to take everything, our land, our wealth. She will steal what belongs to Obi and Ada. No. Ziora cried, standing up. I love them. I would never take anything from them. But Okoro's poison had already spread deep into the minds of the villagers. Some nodded along with him, their trust in her fading. Even the elders, the wisest of the village, looked uncertain. One of them, an old man with a long grey beard, sighed heavily. This is a complicated matter. But Okoro is right about one thing, Ziora is not of our blood. Ziora's heart shattered. Please, she begged. They are my family. My mother and father loved me. Obi and Ada began to cry, reaching for their sister. But the decision had been made. The oldest elder stood up. Ziora, he said solemnly. You must leave this village. This home is no longer yours. The moment of banishment. Ziora staggered back, feeling like the ground beneath her had crumbled away. She turned to Aunt Ezin, whose face was filled with tears and helplessness. She turned to the other relatives, some looked away, too ashamed to meet her gaze. Others nodded in agreement, their hearts hardened by greed. And then she turned to Obi and Ada. They clung to her, their little hands grabbing her clothes, their faces streaked with tears. "No, no, no," Obi sobbed. "Don't go, Ziora," Ada wailed, her tiny arms reaching for her sister. Ziora felt like her soul was being ripped apart. But she had no choice. Leaving home. With tears streaming down her face, Ziora picked up a small bag. Inside, she placed only the things that mattered most. A wooden rattle Namdi had carved for her. A beaded bracelet Ifioma had given her. A small cloth doll Obi and Ada played with. She knelt and hugged Obi and Ada one last time, kissing their foreheads. "No matter where I go," she whispered, "I will always love you." The elders turned away, the villagers murmured, and Okoro smirked in victory as Ziora walked away. Each step felt like a wound, each breath felt like a battle. She did not look back. If she did, she knew her heart would break completely. Into the unknown. Ziora walked for hours, until the village was far behind her. The sky grew dark, and the wind whispered through the trees. She had no home. No family. No one to turn to. Tears fell down her cheeks, but she lifted her head and kept walking. She would survive. She had to. And one day, she would come back. A journey of strength. The road was long and lonely. Ziora had walked for days, her feet aching, her heart heavy. The sun burned during the day, and the cold beat her skin at night. She had no food except for a few dried yams she had packed before leaving. Still, she kept moving forward. She didn't know where she was going, but she refused to stop. A new village, a new beginning. After many days, she arrived in a small village called Umuka. It was surrounded by lush forests and rolling hills, with small huts scattered among fields of millet and maize. Ziora stood at the entrance, uncertain. Would they accept her here? She watched as villagers walked in their farms, carrying baskets of vegetables and leading goats through the dusty roads. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, but she did not beg. Instead, she remembered Namdi's words. A good farmer listens to the land. The land speaks to those who care for it. That night, she found a small abandoned hut at the edge of the village. It was old and covered in vines, but it had a strong roof and a small yard of dry soil. "This will be my home," she whispered. And so, her new life began. Survival and hard work. Ziora cleared the land, using a stick to loosen the dry soil. She found seeds, millet, groundnuts, and beans at the village market, trading small chores for them. Every morning, before the sun rose, she walked on her tiny farm. She carried water from the river, planted crops, and cared for the soil. At first, people in the village whispered about her, a strange girl walking alone. But as the days passed, they saw her determination. Slowly, they began to respect her. An elderly woman, Mama Chika, noticed her hard work. "You have strong hands, child," she said one afternoon. "Come, I will teach you more." With Mama Chika's help, Ziora learned new skills: how to grow cassava, how to store yams, and how to weave baskets to sell at the market. She never complained, never asked for pity. She just worked. And the land rewarded her. Soon, her small farm bloomed with green leaves and ripe vegetables. The villagers saw her kindness when she shared food with hungry children. They saw her strength when she helped others in their fields. She was no longer a stranger. She was one of them. Writing to the stars. Each night, after a long day, Ziora sat in her little hut, lit a small oil lamp, and wrote in her diary. She wrote about her day, about the people she met, about her hopes. But most of all, she wrote about Obi and Ada. Do they miss me, she wondered. Do they still love me? Some nights, she cried. But no matter how sad she felt, she never lost hope. One day, she would see them again. One day, she would return home. Meanwhile, back home, while Ziora was finding her strength, things in her old village were falling apart. At first, Obi and Ada were too young to understand why their sister had been taken away. But as time passed, they began to see the truth. Uncle Okoro did not love them. He did not tell them stories at night. He did not laugh with them or care for them the way Ziora had. Instead, he spent his time talking to rich traders, men who wanted to buy the farm. One night, Obi and Ada hid behind the storage hut, listening to Okoro whispering to a merchant. Once the land is sold, Okoro said, the farm will be gone, and I will be a rich man. Obi's heart pounded. He wants to sell our home. Ada whispered, her small hands gripping his shirt. The twins ran back to their sleeping mats, their minds racing. They finally understood Okoro had lied. And only one person could stop him. Ziora. Obi looked at Ada, his jaw set with determination. We have to find her. The fight for justice. The night after overhearing Okoro's wicked plan, Obi and Ada could not sleep. Their minds were racing. Okoro was selling the farm, the home their parents had built with love, the place where Ziora had cared for them like a mother. They had to stop him. And they knew only one person could help them, Ziora. The search for Ziora. The next morning, as the sun rose over the village, Obi and Ada made a decision. We are going to find her, Obi whispered. Ada nodded. No matter how far she is, we will bring her back. With small bags of food and water, they slipped away from the farm before anyone could stop them. They walked for hours, asking every traveler, every trader, every village elder they met. Have you seen a girl named Ziora? She is kind and strong, and she loves to farm. Some shook their heads. Some offered guesses. Until finally, a merchant from Omuka village nodded. Oh, yes. There is a girl like that. She grows crops on the edge of our village. She is hardworking and good-hearted. Obi and Ada exchanged looks of hope. That must be her. With new energy, they pressed forward, walking through forests and across dusty roads. Their feet ached. Their stomachs grumbled. But they never stopped. They were getting closer. Reuniting with their sister. As they entered Umuka village, they saw a small farm at the edge of the land. A young woman stood among the crops, bending over a row of green plants, the sun shining on her strong, determined face. Ziora. Obi's breath caught in his throat. Ada's eyes filled with tears. Ziora, they cried, running toward her. Ziora turned, her heart stopping for a moment. And then, she dropped her tools and ran to them. The three siblings collided into an embrace, crying, laughing, holding each other as if they would never let go again. I thought I lost you forever, Ziora whispered, running her hands over their faces, their little arms wrapped tightly around her. Obi's voice shook. We need you, Ziora. Ada wiped her tears. Okoro is selling our home. We heard him say it. He never cared about us. He only wants the farm for himself. Ziora stiffened, anger flashing in her eyes. He wants to sell the farm. Obi nodded. We tried to stop him, but no one listens to us. Ada grabbed her sister's hands. You're the only one who can fight him. Please, come home. Ziora closed her eyes, her heart pounding. For months, she had dreamed of going back. She had longed to hold them, to tell them she still loved them. Now, they had come for her. And she would not fail them. The journey back. With renewed strength, Ziora gathered her things. She hugged Mama Chika, thanking her for all she had done. Go, my child, the old woman said, her eyes full of pride. Your family needs you. With her siblings by her side, Ziora left the village and began the long journey home. They walked for days, through fields and rivers, their determination stronger than their exhaustion. As they neared their village, Ziora felt something deep inside her awaken, a fire she had buried when she was cast out. She had left as an orphan. She was returning as a warrior, seeking wisdom. Before going to the farm, Ziora knew they needed a plan. She led Obi and Ada to the hut of Elder Motsi, the wisest man in the village. The old man, with his silver hair and deep eyes, looked up as they entered. "Ziora," he said, a slow smile forming. "I knew you would return." She knelt before him, her siblings at her side. "Elder, we need your help." She told him everything, how Okoro had poisoned the minds of the family, how he had stolen her place, and how he planned to sell the land. Motsi listened carefully, nodding as she spoke. Then, he leaned forward, his voice low but firm. "To win this battle, you need proof. Gather witnesses. Show the village the truth. And when the time comes, stand tall, like your father once did." Ziora took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her mission. She would not run anymore. She would fight. And she would win. The reckoning and reunion. The sun hung low in the sky, casting golden light over the village as Ziora, Obi, and Ada approached their childhood home. Their hearts pounded. This was it. The moment they had been waiting for. But as they neared the farm, whispers filled the air. People peeked out from their huts, eyes widening in shock. "Ziora has returned," someone gasped. Some faces were filled with guilt. Others glared with suspicion. And at the center of it all, standing tall in front of the farm, was Okoro. His smile vanished when he saw them. A confrontation begins. Okoro stepped forward, his voice cold. "What are you doing here, girl? You were cast out." Ziora met his gaze, unshaken. "I am here for what is mine." Okoro laughed, the sound sharp like a blade. "Yours. You were never one of us. You have no claim to this land." Obi and Ada stepped in front of Ziora, their little hands balled into fists. "She is our sister," Obi shouted. "And she loves this farm more than you ever could," Ada added. The villagers gathered, watching closely. Elder Motsi stepped forward, his deep voice cutting through the noise. "Ziora, you have come to challenge your exile?" Ziora took a deep breath and nodded. "Yes, Elder. And I have proof that Okoro has deceived us all. The truth is revealed." She turned to the farm workers, who had once been silent. One by one, they stepped forward. A young herdsman spoke first. "Okoro has been meeting with merchants, trying to sell the land behind the family's back." A market woman added, "He told the traders the farm would be there soon." And then, a former farmhand, his face weathered by time, said firmly, "He does not care for this land. He never did." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Okoro's face turned pale. "Lies," he snapped. "These are all lies." But the people had seen enough. The elders muttered among themselves, exchanging knowing glances. Finally, Elder Motsi raised a hand for silence. "We have heard the truth. Okoro, you have brought shame to this family. You sought to destroy the legacy of Namdi, and I feel more for your own greed." The other elders nodded in agreement. Then, Elder Motsi's voice turned hard. "You are banished from this village. From this farm. From this family. Leave at once. Justice and a new beginning." Okoro staggered back, his face twisted with fury. "You fools. You will regret this." But no one listened. The villagers, once blinded by his lies, now saw him for what he truly was. With no one to defend him, Okoro turned and fled, disappearing down the road, never to return. The moment he was gone, a great silence fell over the village. Then, a soft voice broke it. We were wrong. Ziora turned to see an elderly aunt, her eyes filled with remorse. We let our fear blind us. We should have protected you, child. One by one, the villagers stepped forward, some with tears, others with heads bowed. Forgive us, Ziora. We see now that you are the true heir of this land. Welcome home. Ziora felt her chest tighten, but this time, it wasn't from sadness. It was from healing. She looked at Obi and Ada, then at the farm, the land her parents had loved, the land she had fought for. With tears in her eyes, she whispered, "Thank you. I will honor their memory. I will make this farm thrive again." And with that, Ziora was home. The farm flourishes once again. Days turned to weeks, and soon, the farm began to heal, just like the family. Ziora worked alongside Obi and Ada, teaching them everything their parents had taught her. She showed Obi how to plant yams, just like Namdi had. She taught Ada how to cook with love, just like Ifioma had. The villagers returned, helping with the harvest, mending broken fences, and restoring what had been lost. The farm was no longer just a place of sorrow. It was alive again. The final sunset. One evening, as the sky turned a deep shade of gold and purple, Ziora stood on the hill overlooking the farm. Obi and Ada ran around, laughing, their voices filling the air with joy. Ziora closed her eyes, breathing in the fresh scent of the soil, the crops, the home she had fought so hard to keep. She whispered to the wind, to the stars, to the spirits of Namdi and Ifioma. I did it. I came back. And I will never leave again. The farm was safe. Her family was whole again. And for the first time in a long, long time, Ziora was truly home. The end.